My HOA sent 3 bikers to intimidate my wife. 3 minutes later, they were crying and begging me to stop dialing a phone number. What could make 3 violent criminals more terrified of a phone call than getting beaten up? I'm just a regular guy who happened to know their biggest secret. I'm Jason, an insurance fraud investigator for 12 years who hates confrontation. My wife Carol teaches high school chemistry and stress organizes our spice rack when anxious. We prefer quiet life where drama happens to other people. Then there's Megan, 57-year-old HOA president with aggressive bob haircut and real pearls from her $80,000 inheritance. Fresh money turned her from neighborhood busybody into power-drunk tyrant with delusions of suburban royalty. The disaster started with our beautiful koi pond. We had proper county permits, everything completely legal and outside HOA jurisdiction according to municipal codes. But Megan decided our pond was her business to regulate. Week 1 brought Megan's sickeningly sweet smile, expressing friendly concern about pond aesthetics and property values. Week 2 delivered a violation letter with $500 fine for unpermitted water feature. Carol and I paid it rather than fight crazy neighbors. Wrong move. Week 3 showed Megan's true colors. She demanded complete pond removal, $8,000 of work plus $5,000 landscaping changes. $13,000 total because this woman decided our legal pond violated her vision of neighborhood perfection. My professional instincts kicked in. After 12 years investigating insurance fraud, you develop a nose for scams. This reeked of extortion disguised as community service. I researched county permits, HOA covenants, and municipal codes. Everything confirmed our pond was completely legal and outside their authority. But power-drunk people with inheritance money don't accept logic. The HOA meeting got insane. Megan called an emergency session and voted to approve hiring neighborhood security enforcement using her inheritance money. Official minutes read, address compliance issues through enhanced community outreach, but everyone knew what that meant, hiring thugs. I showed up with documentation, thinking reasonable adults would listen to legal facts. Megan's response, pond goes or we hire enforcement. Her bob haircut shook with rage, pearls clicking like percussion. What got under my skin was her enjoyment of our stress. She was feeding off our fear like an emotional vampire. Carol grabbed my hand, trembling. This wasn't about rules, this was about one bitter woman using inheritance money to play dictator. 3 days later, Carol called with panic, come home now. 3 very large men just showed up saying the HOA officially sent them about our pond. My blood went cold. I sped home, running red lights. The HOA had declared war on my family. They had no idea they were fighting someone trained to investigate criminals. 4:30 p.m. Thursday, that's when everything changed. I pulled into our driveway and saw the nightmare, Carol trapped between our pond and 3 massive men. My heart pounded, but investigator training kicked in. Assess threat, catalog details, identify players. Big Mike was the leader, 6 feet 4 inches with dragon tattoo, leather vest from bar fights. The twins were pure muscle with scars and 1,000-yard stares from prison. Here's what saved us, I noticed ankle monitors glinting in sunlight. All 3 had electronic leashes, they were ex-cons on active parole, which meant they were playing with fire just being here doing paid work. Big Mike spoke to Carol with fake respectful tone, ma'am, the HOA board officially sent us about your compliance issue. He showed real paperwork, Megan had given them legitimate-looking documents. Carol's hands shook reading it. Twin 1 kicked our pond stone edge, this disappears today, no discussion. Twin 2 stepped closer as Carol backed against the fence, hope we don't need physical persuasion. Carol's voice cracked, please, my husband's almost home. Hearing that desperation broke my heart and ignited fury. I stepped out calmly, gentlemen, I'm here. You said this is official HOA business. Inside, I was analyzing them like fraud suspects. Their confidence suggested they'd done this before. But those ankle monitors were the key to everything. Big Mike laughed. That's right, office boy. Time for compliance. He had no idea who he was dealing with. Insurance fraud investigation means I spend 40 hours weekly verifying backgrounds and checking criminal histories. I pulled out my phone and started the call that changed everything. I dialed slowly, building their anxiety. Probation department, this is Jason Williams. I need to report active parole violations in progress at my address. Big Mike's expression changed instantly, all swagger melted away. They knew exactly what parole violation meant: automatic return to prison, no appeals, no second chances. Wait, Big Mike said, real panic creeping in. Who are you calling? I continued, subject Michael Torres, parole number 47291, currently engaged in intimidation for hire at 1247, Maple Street. Big Mike went white. Stop. Don't say my name. Subjects are threatening homeowner regarding property modifications, clear violation of employment restrictions for parolees. All three dropped to their knees like they'd been shot. Full kneeling like praying for divine intervention. Please stop talking. We'll leave right now, Big Mike sobbed. I got 4 months left on parole. Please hang up. The twins cried, our probation officer will violate us straight back. Lady Megan lied, said you were just some nobody office worker. 3 men outweighing me by 200 pounds, reduced to tears by a government conversation. I let them suffer before hanging up. Gentlemen, you're on parole for violent crimes. Working for money violates your release terms. I investigate fraud for a living, background checks are my specialty. Next time someone offers easy money to intimidate families, ask more questions about who you're targeting. Big Mike tried starting his motorcycle with shaking hands, flooding the engine twice. The twins had to push start him while he blubbered apologies. Carol stared at me in awe. You were really calling their probation officers. Insurance fraud investigation teaches you to verify everything about everyone. Within an hour, word spread, Jason made 3 bikers cry with a phone call. 10 minutes later, my phone shattered with Megan's shriek, you destroyed my enforcement team. Your team just violated federal parole conditions. Want me to call the FBI about conspiracy to violate parole terms too? The line went dead. But knowing her vindictive personality, her next move would be more vicious. 2 days later, Carol got called to Principal Adams's office. Instead of routine curriculum discussion, she faced administrators with anonymous complaints about her home environment and whether someone married to a person with questionable criminal associations should work with children. Mysterious citizens had sent professional surveillance photos of me talking to bikers, presented as evidence that Carol was married to someone potentially dangerous. Carol came home crying. She's destroying my entire career, she sobbed. The school board put Carol on administrative leave, no paycheck, no students, her reputation hanging by a thread because some bitter woman couldn't handle losing about a fish pond. Something dark settled in my chest. This was personal warfare targeting everything we'd built. The anxiety-ridden investigator who wanted to avoid confrontation was dead. What emerged was something more dangerous, a man with nothing to lose and professional skills to destroy someone's life. I activated every resource through my insurance work, treating this like a major fraud case. What I found made my stomach turn. Property records showed Megan had systematically targeted families across 3 neighborhoods for 2 years. Fabricated violations, escalating fines, intimidation campaigns designed to force people to sell homes below market value so her consulting company could acquire properties cheaply. This wasn't random behavior. This was organized criminal enterprise disguised as community management. Sophie Wilson, Megan's administrative assistant, had been watching her boss's erratic behavior with growing alarm. She'd started secretly recording conversations and copying documents to protect herself when everything exploded. Sophie approached me nervously, Mr. Jason, I think you need to know Mrs. Megan has been planning systematic pressure campaigns against non-compliant residents. She handed me a flash drive containing audio recordings, emails, and financial documents. Evidence of everything: Megan's plan to use inheritance money for intimidation, her communications with Community Management Solutions, a consulting company sending strategic advice for dealing with difficult residents. The scope hit me like a sledgehammer. This wasn't one crazy woman, this was organized fraud operating across multiple states, targeting suburban families. Megan was part of a sophisticated network that had perfected neighborhood terrorism and turned HOA abuse into profitable business. They'd made one fatal error: they'd targeted someone whose career involved unraveling complex fraud schemes and coordinating with law enforcement. I called the IRS fraud hotline. Nothing gets federal attention faster than reporting organized tax evasion across state lines with documented evidence. I spent 3 hours with Agent Rebecca Brown, walking through Sophie's evidence and explaining the criminal network scope. What you're describing sounds like organized racketeering disguised as property management. We're going to need comprehensive federal investigation. Meanwhile, I needed to deal with immediate threat, which meant talking to Sal Torino, who owned 3 restaurants and ran alternative lending services. He was the person Megan owed $35,000 to for services she couldn't pay after spending inheritance on failed intimidation campaigns. Our meeting was at his restaurant during busy lunch. Your neighbor borrowed money for community improvement projects. She actually spent it hiring questionable people to harass families. She owes me $35,000 and has been dodging calls for 3 months. Sal's offer was straightforward: help him collect what was owed through legal channels, and he'd provide business support for dealing with Megan's harassment campaign. The alliance made perfect sense. Carol was initially horrified at working with someone from Megan's financial world, but transformed from anxious victim to determined fighter. If it helps other families and gets my job back, I'm in. But everything legal and documented. Meanwhile, Megan escalated her psychological warfare, hiring a private investigator to follow me and photograph every conversation. She spent more inheritance money documenting perfectly legal business meetings while owing thousands to legitimate creditors. Her masterstroke of stupidity was filing restraining orders against 8 neighborhood families simultaneously, claiming we were conspiring to harass the HOA board. She used a fake legal firm she'd created, not realizing that creating fraudulent legal documents is serious federal crime. Sophie provided real-time intelligence: they're planning something big. Megan's been on conference calls with regional coordinators discussing escalation protocols for resistant communities. Federal involvement accelerated everything. Agent Brown's team was already investigating Community Management Solutions for tax evasion as part of a larger organized crime task force. Within 2 weeks, we had federal protection as witnesses, which meant Megan's restraining orders were voided and her harassment was documented as criminal retaliation. Instead of us being victims, she was now target of federal investigation. The emergency neighborhood meeting was scheduled for Saturday. Everything was riding on those few hours. Saturday morning arrived like Judgment Day. The community center was packed, some supporting Megan from fear, others quietly supporting us, most just confused and scared. Megan had arrived early with professional presentation, rented projector, printed materials, confident demeanor. She'd even brought her legal representative on speakerphone. Her opening statement had theatrical flair: "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to address the criminal element Jason Williams has brought into our community." Her evidence was impressive: professional surveillance photos of me meeting various people, documentation of the biker incident presented as criminal association proof. "This man," she pointed dramatically, "has brought organized crime to our neighborhood and threatened every family's safety." The crowd reacted with worried murmurs, concerned glances. For a moment, I thought she might win through pure manipulation. That's when I stood up: "Megan, before we continue, why don't we call your legal representative live so everyone can hear their professional opinion?" Color drained from her face, but she couldn't back down. "Of course. Johnson Law Associates, you're on speaker with the community." I dialed the number on her letterhead while the room listened in silence. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered: "Johnson Law Associates. How can I help you today?" It was Megan's own voice, slightly disguised but unmistakably hers. Gasps echoed through the room as people realized they just witnessed Megan answer her own fake law firm's phone. "Technical error," she shouted, scrambling to end the call. "Someone must have hacked my phone system." But damage was done. Everyone had heard her answer that phone in a fake voice, and credibility built over months crumbled in seconds. That's when Sophie Wilson stood up from the back, walked to the front with documents. "I have recordings of everything Mrs. Megan has done, and I think everyone needs to hear the truth." Sophie's audio evidence was devastating. Megan's voice planning biker intimidation, "I don't care what it costs, I want them gone," financial discussions about using HOA funds for revenge, strategic planning with community management solutions. The crowd listened in stunned silence as months of criminal conspiracy played through speakers, documenting everything from embezzlement to extortion to organized harassment campaigns. The financial documents showed exactly where missing HOA money went: $65,000 transferred to various shell companies for security consulting, legal services, community improvement, all tracing back to Megan's network. The smoking gun was payment to enforcement personnel, dated the exact day of our biker visit. Megan had stolen neighborhood money to hire thugs to terrorize the same neighbors she was stealing from. That's when Sal Torino walked in with perfect timing, dressed in business suit with briefcase. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here about outstanding debt Mrs. Williams owes my legitimate lending business." He produced loan agreements showing Megan's financial desperation. Mrs. Williams borrowed $35,000 for community improvement projects. She actually spent it on harassment campaigns against families in this very room. The revelation hit like thunderbolt. Not only had Megan stolen from HOA accounts, she'd borrowed money to fund war against them. Over $100,000 spent terrorizing families over pond aesthetics. Some neighbors cried realizing the scope of victimization. Others got angry enough to demand action. Families who'd supported Megan from fear quickly distanced themselves. Megan's response to complete exposure was denial, deflection, then playing victim. When none worked and the crowd turned against her, she had a complete breakdown, screaming, crying, throwing materials. "I was protecting this community," she shrieked, mascara running. "You're all too stupid to appreciate what I've done." Officer Harris arrived responding to noise complaints. The evidence was so organized that arrest was inevitable: embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and federal racketeering charges. As they handcuffed her in front of the entire community she terrorized, she managed one final threat: "This isn't over. The company will handle all of you." The immediate aftermath was like the community exhaling after holding breath for months. Carroll's school district immediately reinstated her with promotion to department head. The neighborhood voted for completely new HOA board with transparent policies. But Megan's warning about the company was legitimate. Within a week, we noticed black SUVs with tinted windows cruising past our house, professional investigators, anonymous calls to our workplaces. That's when Agent Brown revealed that Sal Torino had been working as federal informant for 18 months. His lending business has been used to track their financial operations across multiple jurisdictions. The man I'd thought was just a businessman was actually an undercover federal asset building cases against Megan's network long before we built our pond. Your evidence from Sophie, combined with Sal's financial intelligence, has given us everything we need to prosecute this organization under federal racketeering statutes. The investigation's scope was staggering. Community Management Solutions had operated in 47 neighborhoods across 8 states, systematically embezzling HOA accounts while driving down property values. Total theft, over $15 million affecting thousands of families. My role evolved from victim to key federal witness. The consulting business I started helping communities fight HOA corruption became an official resource for the federal task force. Within 6 months, I'd helped 8 neighborhoods document and prosecute corrupt boards, recovering over $2 million and sending dozens of criminals to federal prison. The federal case concluded with 8 executive arrests, $50 million restitution to victims, and prison sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years. My testimony was crucial in securing convictions. 2 years later, sitting by our beautiful expanded pond, I can honestly say fighting Megan was the best thing that happened to our family and community. Carol thrived as department head, our neighborhood became a model community, and property values climbed 30%. My consulting business, Truthfinder HOA Consulting, grew beyond imagination, $150,000 the first year helping communities defeat corrupt boards. The personal transformation was remarkable. Carol evolved from anxious teacher to fierce community advocate. Evil only wins when good people stay quiet and hope someone else handles the problem. Megan's prison experience became dark humor for our community. According to reports, she spent her first week trying to organize improvement committees among fellow inmates to address substandard conditions. Other prisoners made sure she understood her days of being in charge were permanently over. When local news interviewed Megan about HOA corruption, her response revealed complete denial. I was protecting community standards and property values. These people were destroying everything I worked to build. Even facing years in prison, she couldn't acknowledge that terrorizing families over fish ponds wasn't legitimate community service. Our annual Transparency Day barbecue has become local institution. The memorial plaque by our expanded pond reads, "Dedicated to transparent governance and community justice." The consulting business continues growing as word spreads about our success. Requests come from dozens of cities where families are being terrorized by corrupt boards working with criminal networks. As I finish this story, case files for Phoenix, Denver, and Atlanta are stacked on my desk, representing hundreds more families needing help defeating the same organized harassment we faced. Megan thought she was teaching us a lesson about power and control. Instead, she taught us how to build an empire of justice protecting families across the country. Her inheritance money became seed funding for a movement that has recovered millions for victims and sent dozens of criminals to federal prison. Not bad for a story that started with 3 bikers crying over a phone call about a fish pond.